Well, everybody loves a good conspiracy. That seems to always be the big thing on the internet with the giddy minds, right? Anyway, I'm going to say this about 2014. I was saying some things about coming up that, I think there's going to be a stock market reset. In other words, like the markets are too far ahead of themselves. Like Paulson, Buffett, Soros, they're supposedly selling off their stocks. Now, I've heard these rumors before, and a famous one was 11/11/11, the Illuminati date, right? Go short the markets in October of 2011. Go short the markets in November. I didn't do that, I was mocking it, okay? And, it turned out to be nothing. Then the next year, 2012, it was kind of a lousy, not so great year for the S&P and the general equities. But then 2013, 30% increase or whatever the hell it was, right? But, it's getting too far ahead of itself. So, some are calling for the 90% correction. Whoa, man, I don't think that's going to happen because they got ways to shore up the price of the stocks. But 30, 40% correction after having a 30% rise in 1 year? Why not? Why not? That's not really crazy. And if it happens, I think it will. You're going to see the gold and silver blogger pumpers out there left and right. Buy gold, buy silver. The sky's falling. But there will not be a financial collapse in 2014. Anyway, it may sell more DVDs, but there's not going to be a financial collapse in 2014. I was looking at some LW pastor resolutions, I guess. This guy is a joke, but anyway, in my humble opinion, what do I know, right? But anyway, it's like buy every piece of gold you got, get out of debt, get out of everything in paper, Eric Sprott, get out of all your paper holdings on your stocks in your mines, right? Per Lindsay Williams, do it. Don't hold on. Pay off your house mortgage and downsize and store food, water, firearms. Get ready to buy the greatest buying opportunity of a lifetime and blah, blah, blah. And the last time, well, he says this every year, so I don't know. If you buy one, you just replay the old one. You see the same thing. The elite word, right? But, when the predictions didn't come about, what happened with this dude, he's kind of disappeared from the airwaves for a while and came back and he said, well, I was sick and I didn't feel good and the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, so I went down to this hospital in Tijuana, Mexico, and this is where the elite go. It's called BioCare. Pay them $100,000 and they fix you up with their alternative stuff or something like that. And so that's why he disappeared off the internet after all his predictions didn't happen. We're doom and gloom back, a couple of years ago. So now he's back again. One of these years he's going to be right. But this tells me, the average person, forget about it. It's done, man. It's done. The problem is, the average person doesn't think. And, let me just say the actual answer to a lot of these problems is a lot simpler than you think. You actually have to get back to grassroots 101 all the way and get away from the giddy minds type stuff. So I like putting out a lot of how-to videos on YouTube and also on how to stay healthy. You don't need to pay $100,000 to some freaking hospital down in Mexico or something like that. You can use some of the ancient wisdom that's been around a long time, and a lot of times there's foods that heal. So I'm getting tired of these guys out here, but I do think what's going to happen is the equities are going to get plummeted this year. It's not a guarantee, but I think that's pretty damn likely because they've been I don't know how the hell they've been shored up for so long. The economy's not that good. Something else I was looking at. One area of discretionary spending is in fitness centers and stuff like that. Now you might see a lot more of that come on in January 1st because after the holidays and after Christmas and New Year's and Thanksgiving, people gain weight in the wintertime and during the holidays, and they want to get back in shape at their New Year's resolution. Actually, a lot of the fitness centers are not doing that well, and that is because it's discretionary spending. People can actually do without it. So that's another indication out there that the economy's not well. It's not a great indication, but it's another indication, and it makes too much common sense. So why are the equities doing so well? So there may be a reset in them, but that doesn't mean there's going to be a financial collapse. Now they're talking about there's also some policy tools they're trying to come up with the global regulators about having runs on banks. But, I'll tell you the truth. If everybody was listening to some of these alternative people all over the place, and everybody pulled all their money out of banks and stuff like that, we would have a financial collapse. There's no doubt about it. And I'd be very interested that what the powers that be would actually do to these people that are telling people to do this, because, you can have. I always like giving the example of being on a desert island. You can have a big pile of gold and silver. You can have a big pile of paper cash. You can have a whole pile of some other type of money. You can have bitcoins or whatever the hell it is. What good does it do if you cannot spend that money for some productive labor or skilled labor that you need, or actual goods and services, or actual hard goods that you need to survive? What good does that money do you? None at all. So, the whole solution to the economy is actually more productivity. It really is. It really is. And getting away from the, these people people get led around the nose by advertising, man. I mean, it's just like YouTube's advertising too, but maybe there's good advertising and there's bad advertising. It depends on what it is. But, people being more austere, down to the simple way of life, and actually doing things on their own, is actually going to be the thing that's going to get you away from the big global power that's trying to put their thumb down on you and all that type of stuff. That's what's going to get you away from it. It's actually hard work, perseverance, and being independent. Silver's one method of the whole strategy. You're keeping some of your money outside the system. But it's actually productivity that makes the difference, man. And, these guys would always pump doom and gloom. It's like they're offering nothing. They're not offering you anything. I'd like to see something where they can offer you something where they can act. But these people, they don't do anything. They don't know how to do anything. All they know how to do is pump fear. That's what they're all about. So, anyway, just want to actually state this because... that's actually the main problem. And, people are looking for a fast solution. If people told them the aliens are coming down from outer space, and, they're going to do this and that, people freaking believe this kind of shit. It's amazing. I don't get it. I don't get it. But that is the problem in itself. People aren't getting down to the nuts and bolts. This thing I mentioned about, the taxation, basically, of getting a 1099 miscellaneous for, gains on that you had because the bank took something back and the fair market value plummeted and you had the loan. That's something legit there, too. But, a lot of times, what we should be doing is making sure that if there are gains on precious metals, that if we see anything coming up where they're going to change any kind of rules, because I almost know this for a fact, if silver went up to like $75 to $100 or $150 or something like that, they're going to tax the hell out of it. They're going to tax the hell out of it. And to me, that's extremely unjust, because what that's telling you, though, is that there's going to be rising prices everywhere. It's not just going to be silver, it's going to be in energy too. And it's going to be across the board in things that people need, like food. So, for them to tax that, they're basically taxing something that is not really a gain. It's because it's the devaluation of the dollar. And it will come about. I mean, people are saying, no, the dollar's always going to be around, and it's going to get devalued. I'm not saying the dollar is not going to be around at all, but it is going to get hammered down. The cycle is changing. It can't sustain itself. I mean, it's ludicrous to think the dollar is going to stay, a top-notch position forever with all the U.S. debt that's out there. Therefore, that's one of the reasons you're going into silver, but that's not the only reason. So, I want to put out something here, because what's going on is there's a lot of misdirected effort being put into, the fear mongers. And these guys ain't doing no good to nobody. At all. Period. Nothing. Nothing. And, it's like a waste of time. I'd rather, to me, I wouldn't waste my time listening to Lindsey Williams. I'll learn something about cars or health and research something there before I'd ever listen to that guy, to tell you the truth. But just want to be, the point of this I'm making here is that in 2014, I think it is very likely we're going to see the metals go up. If they get too far ahead of themselves, I don't know what definition is too far ahead of themselves. I mean, it's not going to be the final bubble top in 2014. I think it's going to have a good year, and if it has too good of a year, it's going to come back down. Now, in my opinion, is that, I don't know this for a fact, but if silver does go way over 50, if it gets up to 72 to 75 this year, that is a hell of a big gain. That's huge. But some definitions of people will tell you, oh no, there's not that much silver, it should be at least 500, it should be at least 1,000. So hold. I think it would come down way below 50 if it got up to something like that. That's what I think. Now, I don't know if it's going up there, but I think it's going to have a good year in 2014. And I think the equities are going to get hammered. But the equities will rebound because there's going to be policy to stimulate them in again. But with people like George Soros, like they're taking they got the short bet on the S&P, he's just going to cash out and he'll buy up cheap. But there'll be panic sellers. There'll be panic sellers, and that's what's going to happen. And these guys that are pumping the fear of doom and gloom, they're pumping fear and panic. And panic is something you don't want. Not at all. Not at all. So, doesn't help. So anyway, I don't want to get rambling on with this update too much because there isn't a lot going on right now, and I'm just stating again because I want people to just have it tried and true that don't trust these gold and silver pumpers. Although gold and silver is a very good investment at this time, just don't trust these guys because they're going to be out in droves when this damn metal starts getting legs again, and the only ones that are going to be buying high is going to be the middle class. It ain't going to be the Wall Street sharks. The central banks and the 6 billion banks, they're already net long. They're net long. They're buyers at this price. They're telling you not to buy, but they're buying. And if, like I said, if it's a collapse, which is not going to happen in 2014, if there's a collapse, think of it as being on a desert island. Say you got thousands of ounces of silver. Really? Is that going to freaking help you? That'll help you if there's a lot of people out there that understand how to do the goods and services or have the goods and services that you could trade with. If that's not there, forget about it. So actually, what's more lucrative is actually production of goods and services that people need. And ergo, this is one reason that Jim Rogers is probably going to be absolutely correct with agriculture. Because people don't want to do it anymore because it's not the yuppie, jet set, highfalutin Wall Street type of activity that people want fast bucks for. It doesn't have that, I'm a farmer, I grow food. It's probably going to be very lucrative though. So, because actually in times of high inflation, if there's a plummet of the currency itself, it's going to actually, what people can't do without, what is not discretionary income, it's food. It's food. So, you'll see big ticket items go way down in price. And, they got these idiot economists, or I don't know what you'll call them that, but they come up with this word called disinflation. Right? And, it's the same word. It's the same exact thing that happens. Inflation, when inflation happens and the currency collapses, stuff people don't need, or they can kind of postpone buying, like big ticket items, like houses, cars, or furniture, or discretionary spending on going into, restaurants and stuff like that, or fitness centers, that all drops. But stuff that you need, like food and energy, that goes up. So they call it disinflation, but that's actually just inflation. And that's exactly what happens. So if you're loaded down with precious metals, and the precious metals actually go up a little higher than the food and the energy prices, you could take some of those metals and you could buy some big ticket items. If you want to do that. Or you could try to reinvest it. But probably, I don't know what you can do, because it all depends on the individual skills and stuff, what kind of capital investment. But, when you sell off any capital asset, I want to say this too, because like in any business out there, say any business, let's say you're an individual, you're a business, you're an investor or whatever, when you sell off any capital asset, yes, you have cash at that particular point in time, but if you look at the balance sheet of any business out there, the assets aren't mainly cash. There's these other assets that help. These are capital goods that help the production of goods and services, so they can have an income stream coming in. So it depends on what the individual wants to do to reinvest, but you're not going to hold fiat. You see, this is where these people that say they never going to sell silver, because what are you going to do? Take fiat cash? Yes, you will. Will you hold fiat cash mostly? No. What business holds fiat cash mostly? None. They have a little bit. They have a certain percentage that they hold. The vast majority of assets are actual assets that help produce more revenue. It depends on the business, because there's a different service-orientated businesses, there's manufacturing orientated businesses, there's marketing and sales type businesses and stuff. There's all kinds of businesses, so it depends on what kind of capital assets you would need. But you're not going to keep all cash anyway. But yes, you will take fiat at the time of sale. And I will be dumping silver if it gets up to some crazy price. Like, I'm not going to dump all of it because I'm not sure. But I would dump some silver if it gets up to some insane value, like it busts way through 50. I am not going to see if it goes to 200 right away or some bullshit like that. I bet you it don't. I got a feeling it's going to... it depends. If we have, problems in the budget, the big thing is going to be the Middle East. That, I don't know when that's going to happen. I thought that was going to happen in 2012. It is late spring. It almost did. If that happens, you're going to see oil go to like to $8 a gallon for gasoline. Oil will go to 150 to 200. But it'll come back down. You're not going to stay there. It'll come back down. So, there go. That's when you sell, man. That's when you sell. Anyway, over and out. Just want to put it out here in Common Sense 101. Nobody's doing that. And avoid the fear. That doesn't do any good.